IBF World Heavyweight Champion. You went, World Heavyweight Champion. It must feel great to be upgraded.
Massive achievement, and it's great. It's a great feeling. It hasn't sunk in yet, but it's good.
Well, it hasn't sunk in because you were just telling me that you've had quite a head-spinning few days.
Yeah.
You came back from holiday in Brazil.
That's right.
Tell us how you found out that you've been upgraded from interim IBF champion to World Heavyweight Champion.
Just on the, actually, when we landed back, I just looked online and just, the new world champion. It's a great feeling. Adds more respect to my name, and it's a great feeling.
Yeah, but I don't know how you're holding your trousers up. The belt hasn't arrived yet. Why? What's going on there?
Yeah, ask Frank. What's happening, Frank?
Let's bring Frank Warren in. Promoter Frank Warren. Firstly, where's the belt, Frank?
It's in the post with a cheque.
It's in the post with a cheque. I'm sure you'd be excited to receive both of those, Daniel. Frank, can you just explain to us how this happened? So, fans of boxing will be well aware that Alexander Usyk was the champion. He had all the belts, but now Daniel has the red IBF strap. How does that happen?
Well, his last opponent, Filip Hrgovic, was the mandatory challenger for the IBF title, and that mandatory was well overdue. Usyk's supposed to have defended against him, but obviously we got the unification fight on with Tyson. Subsequently, the IBF ordered a fight between Daniel, who was the number 2, and Usyk for the interim championship. And the winner of that fight, which is Daniel, was then supposed to fight Usyk, but he's already contracted to fight Tyson. And the IBF, who are based in America, have to follow their rules, which is that if the champion does not defend his belt, then he either gets strips or he relinquishes the title. These are not our rules, they're their rules. And it's not like they haven't done it with very big name fighters before. I think they've done it with Terence Crawford, amongst others. So that's how Daniel's become the IBF champion. He beat the number 1, the mandatory, and that's his position. And he's now obviously making that first defence of his title against AJ on the 21st of September in the Wembley edition of the Riyadh season.
Yep, it's a very exciting time for British boxing and for you, Daniel. Usyk said in a video, Frank, it's a present from him to Daniel and to Anthony Joshua that they could box for that belt. Nobody gives things away for free in this world. What did Usyk get in return?
Well, he's getting a massive payday for the rematch that he was contracted for against Tyson. Yeah. That's what the position is. I mean, it's pure business as far as he's concerned. If it was about holding on to the belts, then he would have not relinquished the other 3. He's in it for the money, and obviously the rematch is a massive fight, which everybody wants to see. It's such a closely fought fight last time round. It's a bigger fight, I think, in December. And whatever happens, the winner of this fight, which will be Daniel on the 21st of September, will fight the winner of that fight down the road, and the 4 belts will then be back on the line again. So all roads will lead to unification again. Well,
that's a mouth-watering prospect in itself. Daniel, a lot's been made of the fact that you and Anthony Joshua sparred many moons ago at the GB boxing headquarters in Sheffield. Yeah. How did that go, that spar?
Well, that spar was 7 years ago. I can't really remember too much about that.
There's a lot of talk online that you did a bit of damage to Anthony Joshua that day.
Yeah, 7 years ago, that was then. Now I'm a different fighter. It's a total different scenario now. And I'm not here to spar him. Let's talk about fighting him. So that's all my mindset is on. So, yeah.
OK, so let's talk about fighting. We just saw the picture of a very young Daniel Dubois and a slightly younger Anthony Joshua as well. Back then, that was 7 years ago, as you say. How does this fight play out?
This fight plays out, me I have to, without saying too many foolish words about AJ and all that, I want to put him to sleep. And, he's been a king for a long time, but I need to slay the king. And that's my mindset going into it.
The King Slayer. OK. Well, I'm really looking forward to it. Now, you received a lot of criticism, some of it unfair, I think, after your defeat to Joe Joyce in 2020. That's 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Some of the criticism suggested that you quit that night, which is the worst thing that a boxer can hear. So to get to this point where you're now, as we've discussed, World Heavyweight Champion, what have you done to turn your career around?
Well, it's been a resurrection for me, really. Out of darkness into the light. And I think my people around me, that's the voices in my ear, my dad especially, and the training team around me has helped me massively coming to where I was to where I am now. It's an uplifting story,
It certainly is an uplifting story. Now you've got the belt. So, Jarrell Miller, Filip Hrgovic.
Yeah.
steps up in quality. You did a real job on Hrgovic, a lot of damage to his face at the end of that fight. Stopped them both within the distance.
Yeah.
How much is Anthony Joshua a step up in quality?
We'll see, you know. I feel like it's my time now. I need to go out there and conquer and prove that I'm up there with the best. And this is chasing greatness, this fight. This is all about chasing greatness. And I'm so excited, happy, and raring to go. Let's go.
Yeah, we can tell. Let's go. Frank, you must be excited by the prospect of this. 26 years old, Daniel Dubois, upgraded to world heavyweight champion. Does he belong among the very best in the heavyweight division?
Well, I've been excited about him since he signed with me when we started talking when he was 17, when he turned 18. And there was lots of talk of what happened in the gym with various established professional fighters and what happened in the sparring. And that's one of the reasons I invested in signing him. We all know what those stories are. I mean, you know, he's being a gentleman there in saying the sparring was the sparring, but everyone knows what happened. And the fact of life is, you know, you mentioned earlier about what happened to him in that fight against Joe Joyce, which he was ahead on on two of the judges' scorecards, and if it had gone the distance, there was only a couple of rounds to go, he'd have had that fight. But Joe boxed really well that night, but he had 4 fractures to his orbital, I think it's his left or right orbital socket, and a retina that was about to become or was torn and would have become detached. And had that happened, he hadn't done the correct thing to do, we wouldn't be sitting here now. Or he certainly wouldn't be sitting here as a boxer. He'd be looking at a different career. So he done the right thing. And as you quite rightly say, 2 really good wins last time out. Excellent wins. Showed what his firepower's all about, what his grit and determination is all about. Showed that any stage of a fight that he's a dangerous finisher. If he gets you in trouble, I think he's one of the best finishers in the business, as I'm sure Baby Miller can testify. And you look at AJ and you look at him and you look at both their last 2 fights, the last 2 fights, which they both look brilliant in their last 2 fights. Daniel fought the better quality opposition. He fought the better fighters, no doubt about that. He fought the guy who's the mandatory that nobody wanted to box. He took him on and done the job on him. And again, this was a guy who said he was use that horrible word in boxing that he was a quitter. Well, the only one who quitted at the end of the day was Hrgovic, because he didn't want to know once that referee jumped in.
Yeah, it was an incredible performance against Filip Hrgovic. Left him incredibly damaged that night. Yeah. You're the world champion, Daniel. But for some reason, AJ seems to be getting top billing in this fight. Does that irk you?
That's not a surprise to me, you know. That's, you know, the career he's had and the resume he's built and all the accolades he's won and everything. So I need to, once I beat him, I've taken all of that. And I've got that behind me as well. And people look up to me and put respect to my name as well. And that's what it's about. Yeah,
you mentioned respect. You've been very respectful, not wanting to talk about things that happen behind closed doors in that spar all those years ago.
Also, about the sparring, you know, I can recall people that I've fought that spoke about sparring me and how they've bashed me up in sparring. So I don't want any bad luck to follow me.
Okay.
I've bashed them up and now let's see what happens.
I understand you don't want to talk about the sparring. What about something that I believe has happened in the filming of a face-off TV show? Eddie Hearn has said it's like WWE. He's claimed that AJ threatened to hit you with a chair. Can you give us your version of that story?
Yeah, well, it's just handbags, really. You know, just, it's just messing about, really. Boxing talk, and, you know, this is a big fight, so, you know, expect my emotions to be high and everything, so, yeah, I've just got off a plane, to be honest, that day, and I was all messed up. But anyway, let's move on.
OK, he had a chair, but it's just handbags. Frank, you have a big stable of boxers. We've already touched on the Fury-Usyk fight. I wonder, how does Tyson Fury react to the fact that he will no longer be boxing for all the belts when he meets Usyk in that rematch?
Well, he's a bit disappointed, but, you know, it is what it is. It's, you know, Tyson's job is to focus, and he doesn't need me to tell that. He knows that himself, is to focus on this big match on the 21st of December in Riyadh. And I spoke with him actually this morning, and that's what he wants. And the 4 belts will, you know, he said the same thing. He feels that if he's in the same frame of mind as I am about as Daniel's chances, he thinks Daniel's going to do the business. So that'll be the unification next year. AJ, you mentioned it earlier, you know, being on the you know, it's billed as Joshua versus Dubois. the reason it was built that way is because they're things, the concessions that had to be made to make the fight happen. Because originally it wasn't going to be for the IBF title until the IBF decided to enforce their regulations. But you know what? Daniel and a lot of people, I think, with the bookmakers, they're making him the underdog. He was the underdog in his last 2 fights. He showed what he's all about when he's getting into that situation. That won't faze him at all. All the pressure is on Anthony Joshua. The pressure is on him to deliver. Can he deliver? You know, this is a guy who can punch, who can box. He's younger than him. Most of these heavyweights, if you look at now, they're into the. I think there's only 2 heavyweights in the top. I think it's the top 14 or 15 that are under the age of 30, and that includes Daniel. So he's one of the. He is the world champion now. He's one of the guys who's got a real good role, and he's got great experience behind him from a young age. I don't even think he's peaked yet. I don't even think he's at his best. But one thing's for sure, AJ will have to be at his best in this fight because he's got a hungry fighter who wants to take that mantle away from him as being the guy you've got to beat, the guy that he's got to beat to establish himself. And I know he's more than capable of doing that. And our stable, as you call me, the fighters under our roster, they're all good quality fighters. I mean, most of the guys that we've got, and a lot of them have been like we've done with Daniel, guys that we've invested in from a very, very young age. And these guys have coming through. You know, Nick Ball won a title a couple of weeks ago. You know, we've got about 4 or 5 fighters who are now mandatory challengers for titles on our roster, are also on that show. So it's a really, really great time for Queensberry and certainly these youngsters. And Daniel has been from the beginning with us, and it's paid off for him. And it's been a great partnership to get where we are now. But at the end of the day, he's done the business in the ring, and I know he's going to do it on the 21st because he's more than capable. And this is going to be. It's going to be one of those fights, you know, 2 British fighters. When you get the 2 Brits in, they're fighting for a significant title. These always wind up being classic fights. You can imagine what the atmosphere is going to be like at this sold-out arena. The place will be electric. It'll be on fire. And I'm telling you, this fight will deliver.
Yes, we hope so, Frank.
It won't go the distance. I'm telling you that. It will not go the distance.
You don't get paid overtime in the sport of heavyweight boxing. We'll just finish on that aspect, Daniel. Your last 2 fights have been in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Yeah. I know you enjoyed those fights, but this is in London at the National Football Stadium. It's going to be huge.
Homecoming fight, this one. This is massive. Homecoming and chasing greatness, so I'm up for it. Let's go. I'm ready to go.
The King Slayer is chasing greatness. Daniel Dubois, thank you for talking to us. Frank Warren, thanks for talking to us. And Daniel, I know you didn't get Michael Buffer or Jimmy Lennon Jr. announcing you in the ring as the new. Yeah. So let's just say this. And the new.
And the
IBF
new.
World Heavyweight Champion, Daniel Dubois. Thanks for being with us.
And on the 21st, it'll be and still.
Still and still.